They thought I'd roll over and accept it. They thought after 14 years, I'd just nod and take the hit. But the moment he said, "It's nothing personal," I knew I was about to make it very, very personal. My name's Dr. Rachel Monroe. I've been a veterinarian in the small city of Halston, Kentucky, for as long as I can remember. 14 years of blood, sweat, and late-night emergency calls at Eastside Pet Clinic, long before anyone cared about profit margins or corporate synergy. This place wasn't just where I worked. It was my second home, my identity. Until the day Daniel Cross walked in. Tall, expensive suit, fake smile. The new face of the clinic after it was bought out by a corporate chain called EverVet Holdings. When Dr. Klein retired, we were promised a smooth transition and respect for the culture we built. Right. That promise lasted about 3 weeks. "You're one of our highest compensated staff members," Daniel said, tapping his sleek tablet like a judge delivering a sentence. "Unfortunately, your current salary is not sustainable under the new model. We're adjusting your compensation by 40% to better reflect industry standards." I stared at him, the air thick with disbelief. 40%, I repeated, slow and clear. He nodded like it was nothing. "You'll still be well paid for a veterinarian in this region, and you'll keep your full-time hours. Honestly, many would consider that a win." A win? 14 years of waking up at 2 a.m. for emergency surgeries. 14 years of holding trembling hands of owners saying goodbye to their pets. 14 years of building trust, not just with animals, but with their people. And now he wanted to slash my pay in half and call it a win? I should have walked out then and there, but I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I smiled. "When does this go into effect?" "Next payroll cycle," he said, already looking back at his tablet. "We'll need your decision by Friday." I stood up without another word. On the way out, he added with a smirk, "Oh, and we've sent out the new scheduling software training guide. Should be in your inbox." In the hallway, I passed Sandra, our receptionist for over a decade. Her eyes said it all before she even opened her mouth. "You too?" I asked. She nodded, her voice barely a whisper. 30%, and they cut my hours to 25 a week. We didn't need to say more. Everyone at the clinic was quietly bleeding. That night, I couldn't sleep. My apartment felt like a prison. All I could think about were the hundreds of pets whose lives I'd touched. Photos covered my walls. Thank you cards, drawings from kids, letters from grieving owners. I wasn't a number in a spreadsheet, and I damn sure wasn't going to let someone like Daniel Cross treat me like one. The next day, I sat down with Ethan, our junior vet who had joined just a few months ago after escaping a corporate vet chain in Nashville. "I've seen this play before," he said grimly, biting into his sandwich in the break room. "First the pay cuts, then the efficiency targets. Before long, it's all about upselling dental cleanings and blood panels no pet needs." "Is that why you left your last job?" I asked. He nodded. "They had me recommend $1,000 wellness packages to clients on fixed incomes. When I pushed back, I got flagged for non-compliance." I didn't say it out loud, but I was already formulating a plan. If they wanted to turn this clinic into a machine, they'd have to do it without me. By Wednesday, I made the call I'd been dreading and needing. "Dr. Klein." He picked up with a chuckle. "Rachel, how are things?" I didn't sugarcoat it. After I finished, there was a long pause. Then, "I swear, they told me they'd protect the spirit of the place. I would never have sold if I knew this would happen." "It's not your fault," I said, though the words tasted bitter. "You earned your retirement, but I think I need to walk away." Another silence, and then he said something I didn't expect. "Start your own clinic." I blinked. "What?" You've got the experience, the clients love you. And trust me, the town needs a place that still puts animals over margins. You can do this. I didn't say yes. Not yet, but I didn't say no either. The idea burrowed into my brain like a tick. That afternoon, I got called in to see Max, a 10-year-old lab I'd been treating since he was a puppy. His owner, Mrs. Ellis, looked at me with panic in her eyes. They scheduled us with someone else? She whispered. I asked for you specifically. I glanced at the new chart. Sure enough, someone had changed the default vet assignment, a subtle but obvious move. You're stuck with me, I guess. I smiled, checking Max's ears. But inside? I was boiling. Thursday night, I did something I hadn't done in years. I pulled out a yellow legal pad and started sketching floor plans for an imaginary clinic. I looked at commercial property listings, called a friend at the local bank. It wasn't a commitment yet, but it was close. By Friday morning, I had already made up my mind. I knocked on Daniel's door at 9 a.m. sharp. You have your answer? He asked, not bothering to look up from his screen. I do, I said, placing a sealed envelope on his desk. This is my 2-week notice. He looked up sharply. You're quitting? Over a standard adjustment? I'm pursuing something better, I said flatly. He leaned back, clearly annoyed. Rachel, let's not be rash. This is how the industry works now. It's evolution. You can't cling to the past. I met his gaze. No, Daniel, this isn't evolution. This is extinction, and I refuse to be part of it. He said nothing, just reached for my letter and waved me off. But the news spread like wildfire. By noon, I had already gotten texts from Sandra and Ethan. Are you really leaving? Sandra asked me by the copier. I am, I said, but I'm not disappearing. She stared at me for a moment. If you're building something, I want in, I smiled. You'll be my first call. That night, as I sat alone with my tea and my legal pad full of scribbled ideas, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Mrs. Ellis. If you go, Max and I are coming with you. By Monday morning, I had already mapped out a location, a rough budget, and a 3-month runway, tight, risky, but doable. I wasn't just walking away from a job. I was sprinting toward freedom. But of course, Daniel Cross wasn't about to make that easy. Rachel, he called as I walked into the clinic. A moment of your time? I knew that tone. Slick, rehearsed, like a car salesman trying to upsell a warranty. I'm good, thanks, I replied, heading toward my exam room. He stepped into my path. Just 5 minutes. I followed him reluctantly into his office. He closed the door, folded his hands, and gave me that empty politician's smile. I want to revisit our conversation from Friday. I've spoken to corporate. We're prepared to reconsider your compensation. There it was, the panic behind the poker face. Too late. I've already accepted another opportunity, I lied, though technically it wasn't a lie. I just hadn't created the opportunity yet. Daniel's brow tightened. You're a senior vet, Rachel. It's not smart to burn bridges. No bridge is worth crossing if it leads into a fire, I said. I gave my notice. I'm finishing out my 2 weeks. That's professional courtesy. Nothing more. His jaw clenched, but he said nothing else. For the next few days, the air at Eastside felt electric. The clients knew something was up. The staff whispered in corners. I was careful not to say anything concrete, but people could feel the shift. I wasn't sad. I was ready. On Wednesday, I pulled Ethan aside between appointments. I've been scouting a location, I said quietly. Riverbend Plaza. It used to be a pediatrician's office. Most of the medical infrastructure's already there. He blinked. You're really doing it? I am. He looked at me for a long moment, then said, "Keep me in the loop." That night, I called in a favor. My old friend Cassie, a veterinary tech who had left the industry a year ago after burnout from another corporate chain. "I need someone I can trust," I said. Cassie didn't hesitate. "Name the place and time." Things were moving fast. Too fast, maybe, but something inside me had clicked. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about everyone EverVet was stepping on like they were disposable. The next morning, something happened that told me I was absolutely doing the right thing. Mrs. Whitmore brought in her cat, Jasper. Elderly, diabetic, fragile. I'd been managing his care personally for over a year, but on the schedule, the appointment was listed under Dr. Salazar, a new hire from EverVet's corporate pipeline. I caught it and asked Sandra, "Was this an error?" She hesitated. "Number Daniel's been quietly reassigning your patients all week. He told the front desk that it's part of the transition protocol." I checked the system. Sure enough, dozens of longtime patients I'd cared for were no longer mine. Reassigned, wiped clean, as if I'd never been part of their stories. I was furious. And then I saw it. A note in Jasper's chart. "Client advised of updated senior care package. Recommended full diagnostic panel and Tier 3 dental assessment." I hadn't recommended that. I wouldn't have. Jasper didn't need a $900 battery of tests, and I sure as hell wouldn't force it on a retiree like Mrs. Whitmore. I found her in the waiting room, confused and flustered. "They said it's required now?" she whispered. I smiled gently and walked her back myself. Once the exam was over, I told her quietly, "If you'd rather wait on those tests, I support that decision. Jasper's stable. We can revisit them in a few months." She looked relieved. "Thank you. I trust you, Rachel." After she left, Daniel stormed into my exam room like a thundercloud. "What are you doing?" "I'm doing my job." "You're undermining company policy," he hissed. "Those protocols are mandatory." "They're unnecessary and exploitative," I snapped. "I'm not going to push overpriced treatments on people just to hit your revenue targets." He leaned in. "You have 2 days left. Don't make this harder than it has to be." I stood my ground. "You've already made it hard, but I promise you, what comes next, that's on you." That night, I met with a lawyer. She reviewed my employment contract. No non-compete clause. No enforceable non-solicitation. Kentucky law was clear, especially in medical fields. "You're good to go," she said. "They might try to scare you, but they've got no legal ground to stand on." And just like that, I started making calls. Quiet ones, former colleagues, equipment vendors, real estate agents, my banker. I wasn't asking for favors. I was laying bricks. By Friday, I had signed the lease on the Riverbend space. I called Cassie first. "We're doing this," I said. She screamed into the phone. Ethan was next. "I can't officially commit yet," he said. "But if you need me, I'm one phone call away." Things were starting to move faster than I could control. Rumors were swirling. Clients started asking questions directly. "Where will you be practicing after this? Will you still be in Halston? We heard a new clinic's opening up. Any idea who's behind that?" I kept it vague. Legally, I wasn't allowed to solicit, but I didn't have to. Because the people who truly knew me, they were already watching, waiting. Daniel's grip was slipping, and he knew it. The following Monday, I arrived at the clinic to find an unfamiliar face in the conference room. Corporate legal and HR. "Before you go," Daniel said, with that smug tone, "we need to review some concerns." They slid a cease and desist letter across the table. It claimed I was in breach of contract, that I was planning to open a competing clinic. that I was poaching staff and soliciting clients. I didn't flinch. "There's no non-compete in my agreement," I said calmly, placing a copy of my original contract on the table. "And under state law, you have no legal basis to restrict my practice." Their smiles faded. HR tried to play mediator. "We'd like to find a solution that works for everyone." "I already have," I said. They offered a compromise. Don't contact clients for 30 days, and they'd back off the legal pressure. I agreed, because I didn't need to contact anyone. They were already coming to me. That night, Sandra texted me a photo. It was a sticky note with a list of 20 names, clients who had called asking where I was going. At the bottom, she wrote, "When you're ready to hire a receptionist, call me first." We were building something real, and Daniel Cross had no idea what was coming next. My final week at Eastside wasn't just emotional, it was war. A quiet war, strategic. Every smile was a shield, every polite nod masked my contempt. And behind the scenes, I was laying the groundwork to bring everything Daniel Cross had built crashing down. I kept showing up, kept treating pets with the same care I always had. But I knew something was off the moment I saw the break room bulletin board on Tuesday morning. A new service pricing list was pinned up, bold and shiny and utterly shameless. Vaccinations, up 35%. Routine checkups, now bundled into comprehensive care packages filled with redundant, often unnecessary tests. Dental cleanings, raised by nearly $200 overnight. It wasn't just price gouging. It was bait and switch, disguised as protocol. I turned to Ethan, who was reading the same sheet. "They're not even pretending anymore." He just shook his head. "Dr. Salazar told me we're supposed to recommend the Platinum Wellness Package to every client. Doesn't matter if the pet needs it or not." I stared at the paper. It wasn't medicine, it was manipulation. Later that day, I had an appointment with Mrs. Green and her 12-year-old golden retriever, Rusty. He'd been coming to me for years, arthritic, sweet, gentle. I knew his file better than anyone. According to protocol, I was supposed to upsell her on a $600 senior health screen, tests we'd already run 2 months ago. Completely unnecessary. I sat on the exam room stool and looked her in the eye. "Rusty looks great. I know the new system says it's time to repeat those tests, but frankly, we're good for another few months. No need to stress him, or your wallet." She sighed in relief. "Thank you. I wasn't sure what to think with all these new prices and packages." Unfortunately, I wasn't the only one in the room. As I wrapped up, Daniel walked in, holding a clipboard, wearing his favorite smirk. "Mrs. Green," he said, fake charm turned up to 100. "We wanted to make sure you understood the value of our senior package. It's about proactive care, catching things early. We're even offering a 10% discount today." She blinked, confused, looking at me. I kept my voice neutral. "I've already spoken to her. Rusty's doing well. We're going to monitor and reassess in a few months." Daniel's smile cracked. "Our new standards are in place for a reason." "And my clinical judgment is also in place," I replied, calm but firm. "You hired me to be a doctor, not a salesman." After she left, he cornered me near the storage closet. "Undermining the protocol again?" he sneered. "You really want to go out on bad terms?" I looked him straight in the eye. "There's no such thing as a good term with you." That night, I logged into the patient system from home, and what I saw nearly made me throw my laptop. They were already reassigning my patients, dozens of them. Their records now marked primary care doctor, Salazar or Dr. K. Nguyen. I wasn't even gone yet, and they were trying to erase me like I was a stain on their spreadsheets. I barely slept. By 2 a.m., I was on the phone with my lawyer. How fast can we legally open? With temporary equipment and emergency licensing approval, she said. You could be seeing patients in 2 weeks. 2 weeks. I leaned back in my chair, heart pounding. They thought I'd vanish quietly. But if Daniel wanted to play dirty, I could dig in deeper than he ever imagined. The next morning, I arrived early and started packing personal items. My framed photos, my worn stethoscope, a ceramic dog mug one of my first patients had painted for me when I saved her beagle from heart failure. No way was I leaving those behind. As I loaded them into my car, Sandra approached, holding a small envelope. Inside was a folded list, 20 names of clients who had called the front desk asking about me. At the bottom, she'd scribbled, "They're looking for you. We all are. Call me when you're ready." I didn't cry. I just smiled and walked back in for my final day like it was any other. But I knew it was the last time Daniel Cross would ever underestimate me. That afternoon, he summoned me into the conference room for my exit protocol meeting. HR and legal were there again. More papers, more warnings, more veiled threats. "Just to reiterate," the legal rep said, sliding a new document across the table. "You are not to contact any East Side clients or staff regarding future veterinary services." I looked at it, didn't touch it. "There's nothing enforceable in there." "It's a courtesy," Daniel added, voice cool. "We could take further action if you cause disruption." I reached into my bag and pulled out my own packet, copies of signed documents, statutes, legal correspondence. "I'm not causing disruption," I said. "I'm offering a choice." "You're one vet," he said, almost laughing. "How much impact do you think you'll really have?" I met his eyes and smiled. "We'll find out." That night, I sent the final email to my team, Cassie, Ethan, Sandra. "We open in 14 days. Riverbend Veterinary Clinic, be ready." The next morning, we hit the ground running. I rented basic exam equipment, bought used tables, had the floors cleaned and repainted. The reception desk came from a closing pediatrician's office and still had lollipops written on a drawer in faded Sharpie. But I didn't care. This wasn't about polish. This was about purpose. And on opening day, I learned just how much the community had been waiting. Opening day was supposed to be quiet. Just a handful of appointments to test our systems, work out the kinks, and get used to the space. I even bought donuts for the team and joked about how we might finally get through a morning without anyone bleeding or barking. Then I looked outside. At 8:45 a.m., 15 minutes before we officially opened, the parking lot was full. A line of people stretched down the sidewalk, some standing with carriers, others holding leashes, and one man, Mr. Carson, with his 90-pound lab mix in the back of a pickup truck. I blinked. Cassie stepped up beside me, mouth half open. "Did you invite them?" I shook my head. "I only called 20 clients, the ones with urgent needs." Sandra was already behind the front desk, her fingers flying across the keyboard. "I think word got out," she said, grinning. "Community Facebook page, probably. And Jenna told me someone started a 'Where did Dr. Monroe go?' thread on Nextdoor." By noon, we'd registered over 70 pets. 70. That wasn't a soft launch. That was a full-blown stampede. I recognized almost every face. The Garcias with their 3 cats. Old Mr. Patterson and his tortoise, Sheldon. Mrs. Whitmore, bless her heart, with Jasper the diabetic cat I'd refused to upsell. One after another, they came in, smiling, hugging me, saying the same thing over and over. "We followed you." Not the clinic, not the brand. Me. That afternoon, as I checked a golden retriever's gums, Sandra slipped me a note. 5 clients canceled their East Side appointments and came here instead. They're panicking over there. I didn't say anything, but I felt it. It had begun. By closing time, we'd registered 146 pets. We ran out of coffee, printer paper, and patience, but never compassion. We worked until 8 p.m., exhausted and high on adrenaline. As I locked the front door, my phone buzzed. A text from a former colleague still stuck at Eastside. Emergency staff meeting tomorrow morning. Schedule is suddenly wide open. I smiled. Daniel Cross must have been sweating. The following days blurred into a wave of back-to-back appointments. The waiting list grew by the hour. We had to extend hours, double up on appointments, even hire 2 temps just to answer phones. Clients were spreading the word like wildfire. One woman told me she'd heard about us from her dog groomer. Another said her cousin forwarded her an email that was making the rounds. If you care about your pet, follow Dr. Monroe. I hadn't sent that email. But apparently, someone had. I became, unintentionally, a symbol. A quiet rebellion against corporate medicine. A whisper that turned into a roar. It wasn't about me anymore. It was about trust. Eastside tried to fight back. They sent out glossy postcards advertising state-of-the-art services and new leadership focused on quality care. But clients saw through it. Word had already spread. The real clinic, the one with heart, it had moved. 3 weeks after we opened, Dr. Klein, my old mentor, walked through the front door. I had to see it with my own eyes, he said. We gave him a tour. He met the team, shook hands with clients, even took a photo in front of the mural Cassie had painted in the lobby, a tree filled with the names of our very first patients. He pulled me aside before he left. "You've built something better than what I ever imagined," he said. "I regret selling to them." I didn't say anything. I just hugged him. 2 days later, an email landed in my inbox. From Daniel Cross. Subject line, "Let's talk." I opened it. "Rachel, I'd like to meet to discuss the evolving veterinary landscape in Halston. There may be mutual opportunities worth exploring. Let me know if next Tuesday at 2 p.m. works. Daniel." I stared at the screen. Then I typed back, "Tuesday at 2 works. My rate for consultations is $350 per hour. Just business. Rachel." I hit send and leaned back in my chair. Because Daniel was finally realizing what I knew all along. He thought I was just one vet. But I wasn't. I was the reason the heart of that clinic beat in the first place. And now? That heart belonged to Riverbend. I never showed up for that meeting with Daniel Cross. I didn't need to. By the time Tuesday rolled around, Riverbend had officially reached a wait list of 1,200 pets. Yes, you heard that right. 1,200. Most of them were former Eastside clients. Some had even walked out of appointments mid-visit once they found out I was no longer there. And the staff? They followed me too. Cassie became our head tech. Sandra left Eastside 2 days after filing her resignation and walked into Riverbend's reception area with a tray of homemade cupcakes and her headset already plugged in. Ethan gave his notice just 1 week after we opened. Said he was done pretending compassion and quotas could coexist. I didn't have to steal anyone. They ran. Daniel must have figured it out the hard way when he walked into an empty waiting room on a Friday morning and saw the week's schedule dotted with cancellations and white space. Word was, corporate wasn't happy. Evervet's regional team started investigating what they called client migration anomalies, but there were no anomalies, just consequences. One day, Jenna, the young vet who'd stayed behind, sent me a message. "They're offering retention bonuses, threatening us with performance reviews if we don't hit sales numbers. It's getting ugly." I wanted to be surprised. But I wasn't. Because when you build a business on manipulation and numbers, people don't stay. They escape. Meanwhile, our Riverbend family kept growing. Clients brought flowers, baked goods, and even pet portraits for the walls. Kids made posters. One woman crocheted tiny vet scrubs for the front desk mascot, a one-eyed rescue cat named Hank, who'd claimed our reception chair as his throne. And then came the media. A local reporter reached out, wanting to write a story on our explosive success. She'd heard from a friend who followed her dog groomer, who followed our Facebook page. I agreed, on one condition. No attacks, I said. This isn't about tearing Eastside down. It's about showing that the way we treat animals and people still matters. The article went viral. Headline: One vet said no to corporate greed. Now the whole town's following her. I didn't read the comments. I didn't have to. The next day, we hit 2,000 patient registrations. 2 months later, I got a call from a man named Marcus Chen. He was a partner at a major veterinary equipment supplier. One of the reps I used to work with. We're pulling out of our Eastside contract, he said. Their orders have dropped 65% and they're not paying on time. We'd rather back someone who actually cares about the animals. Let us know what you need. The tide had turned. By month 4, I had to hire a second full-time vet, 2 new techs, and a part-time behavior specialist. We weren't just surviving. We were growing faster than I could keep up with. I worked 12-hour days, went home exhausted, and woke up with a fire in my chest. Not anger, not spite, purpose. And then, out of nowhere, I got a letter, an actual letter, hand-delivered, from Daniel Cross. Dr. Monroe, we've seen the impact Riverbend has had in the community. While it's clear your practice has gained significant traction, I believe there's room for strategic collaboration between our organizations. We're open to discussing potential mergers, partnerships, or cross-referral programs. Respectfully, Daniel Cross, Regional Director, Evervet Holdings. I laughed, actually laughed. They tried to gut my salary by 40%, tried to erase me, reassign my patients, strong-arm my reputation, and drown the trust I'd spent years earning. Now they wanted to merge? No, thank you. I didn't respond, just framed the letter and hung it on the break room wall next to a picture of Hank the cat, sleeping in a pile of intake forms. That was the real trophy. One evening, I stayed late at the clinic. Everyone had gone home. The lights were dim, and I was sitting on the floor in the lobby, leaning against the wall. I looked around at what we'd built. The space wasn't fancy. We didn't have marble floors or waterfall fountains. We had squeaky chairs, cracked tiles, and a jar of lollipops at the front desk. But we had heart. Real heart. The kind no corporate spreadsheet could ever quantify. Then I heard the door open. It was Mrs. Whitmore, holding Jasper in his carrier. I know you're closed, she said, embarrassed, but he's been throwing up again. I stood up, smiled. Come on back. Let's take a look. That moment, that's why I did it. Not revenge, not victory. It was about being the person people could turn to at 9 p.m. on a Tuesday with a sick cat and tears in their eyes. Daniel Cross will fade. Evervet Holdings will move on to the next clinic, the next acquisition, the next city to squeeze dry. But me? I'm still here. Riverbend is still here. And we're not going anywhere. So, to answer the question Daniel asked me in that conference room, you're just one vet. How much impact do you think you'll really have? This much, Daniel. Exactly this much. And we're just getting started.